What's happening, sports fans? We welcome you back after a little hiatus. Apologies for Tom and I taking our honeymoons during football season. I guess it goes to show that we're the show that really doesn't pride ourselves on pride. But we humbly come back to you begging that you follow us again for some football coverage.
Life happens.
In week 9. Yeah, life happens. Look, Bodie was here. That's why he has the job at Scorebook Live. Scorebook Live is the official digital content provider of all things CIF. We particularly care about Bodie, though, in his coverage of the San Diego section. Before we go any further in the show, though, let's say thank you again to our sponsors at the U.S. Army and check out everything that they're up to right now. Thanks again to the U.S. Army. Guys, today I want to get to the top 10 again, even if it's going to mostly be chalk. I want to talk about some game balls. We got some game predictions to get to. Plus, I think we can say right now who are becoming everybody's favorites for each division, at least. We only got a couple games left in the season, and I think we're at favorites versus the field time, maybe. But let's start with that top 10. Bodie DeSilva from Scorebook Live, your top 10 from this week. And then, Tommy, I want your reaction to it.
Yeah, for me, it's still Carlsbad at number 1. And I've been interested in recent weeks. Christian and I, we both vote in the media poll top 10. And at this point, it's just 3 teams receiving number 1 votes, although it does surprise me a little bit that Carlsbad, with all their recent success in recent years, is still the 3rd out of those teams. But regardless, for me, I've seen Carlsbad. They're legit. I'm going to see them again this week as they have a chance to clinch a league title. Lincoln comes in at number 2, have had some impressive wins. Their one loss was outside of the section up against Bishop Alemany in Los Angeles. Madison there, still undefeated. The best undefeated team in San Diego. They can do a little bit of everything. Last week, 303 rush yards in their big win over St. Augustine. Poway comes in at number 4. I think they're the wild card at this point. Can they make the open division? I kind of lean towards that they won't. But for me, I think they're the 4th best team in the county right now. So they're undefeated. They have a really strong running game, and they don't give up many points. So that's a great combination. Helix is there at number 5 for me. Big win over Steel Canyon last week. The offense seems to be back where it needed to be after a couple losses to some Southern Section teams. Granite Hills there at number 6 for me at 6-2, one of the biggest surprises in the county, I think, so far this season. 55-0 win over Grossmont. They'll have a big showdown against Helix to end the regular season. Cathedral Catholics there at number 7. They're 3-5. I would expect them to win their final 2 games to finish at 5-5, but I don't see that being good enough to make the open division. El Camino's there at number 8. I saw them last Thursday. They are a great team, especially on the defensive side. A shutout. They've allowed 20 points or less now, I believe, in 5 straight games, and one of those was against Carlsbad. Modern Day Catholic, they've worked their way back, 4-4 now, 4 straight shutouts. They are there at number 9. Then La Costa Canyon coming in at number 10. They're still alive in the race for the Avocado League. They're going to host Carlsbad this week, which is a tall task, but if they can pull it off, they have their chance to share, ultimately win a league title because they would have the head-to-head win there.
Tommy Morris, your thoughts, reactions, and or top 10.
Yeah, the way that everything sort of shook out last week, it made those 10 teams pretty solidified. But any Mission Hills in or out for you?
They are the next team out just because I saw La Costa beat them head to head, but it's really close. They've been winning too, and they're going to play.
So yeah, that's the only. Again, based off the way things shook out last week, that's the only team that has an argument, I think, of the team that are not in right now that could potentially be in. There's really 11 in that top 10, and then everyone else is kind of the outside looking in. But hey, still 2 more weeks left, 2 more games for a lot more teams, and a lot more chances to prove them, or everyone to prove themselves. More importantly, to gain some of those points in the actual rankings that matter, the CF rankings.
I'm outright pulling for Poway to make it into the open division because I just want to see that be a refreshing year where someone new is completely in the mix.
And that's another thing too. Bodie said Madison, the best undefeated team in San Diego. They have a good argument for that, obviously, but Poway is not to be looked over at 8-0 also. So they haven't lost yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, Madison Poway in the open division final sounds like a fantastic game at Snapdragon Stadium. Dead ass. That would be a huge. That would be a
that everybody expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yes. I don't know. I don't know how to fall on that ironically or unironically, whatnot, but that sounds like a fun matchup at
And just
Snap.
one other trend for right now, the top 5 teams for the Division I rankings, ultimately the top 4 would be open, but the top 5 are all public schools right now, and that's not something we've seen in recent years. So definitely interesting how that's gone this year.
Well, let's put that on the poll for sure at SD Prep Insider on Twitter, on Instagram is where you can find our polls. Would you be surprised? Bodie, you said top 5?
Top 5, yeah. Mission Hills is at 4, Poway's at 5 right now.
Right, we'll put that on the poll at SD Prep Insider on Twitter, on Instagram. Are you surprised that the top 5 ranked football schools are public schools? Moving on, let's go to game balls from last week. Tommy Morris, did anybody stand out to you from across international lines where you were observing these games on a Friday?
Yes, everybody did, but I'll just point out 4 really quickly. We'll go to Christian High School, Hunter Province, 5 catches, 149 yards, and touchdown in their upset win over Mira Mesa. Big win there for Christian. Khalil Gordon, Elko Valley, I think we mentioned him a couple times, 34 carries, 228 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That is a lot of work there. 34 carries. Good job, Mr. Gordon. Jalen Brown, Madison, 13 carries, 214 yards, and a touchdown. Very, very efficient evening. Again, I can't wait to see Madison get a little bit tested. They've made everything look pretty easy so far this season. And then a combined game ball for Chris Bosch and Alan Leon from Fallbrook. Combined, they were 19 carries, 262 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Fallbrook, a team early on, they kind of opened their eyes when they had a close game with UC, and they have not really disappointed. They have looked pretty much like the real deal. That O-line doing a great job blocking for those ball carriers up in Fallbrook.
Bodie De Silva, Scorebook Live. You always got something cooking. Great articles, list, polls. You got any game balls, and or what can people come check out from you this week?
Yeah, I think most impressively, a lot of names I saw this week that had not been top performers earlier this year. So good to see some new names, starting with Zuriel Eatman. I was at this one in person. El Camino running back, 150 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and did it on only 8 carries in their win against San Marcos. Elijah Clark from Mar Vista caught 5 passes for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's one of the best stat lines we've seen this season. Zach Marshall from Carlsbad, 7 catches, 108 yards, 3 touchdowns, has given Julian Sayin another weapon outside of Justin Johnson there. I'll go with, Tommy mentioned a couple of these, I know with Khalil Gordon there from Elko Valley. So I'll go Jack Schneider from Del Norte, 256 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, also had a rushing touchdown in their win over Vista. Del Norte's got, between him and Ty Olson, some really impressive playmakers there. And then Jalen Brown from Madison, 214 yards and a touchdown in their win over St. Augustine.
Guys, very quickly.
That kid from Mar Vista's name, Jaleel Hyatt? Or Jalen Hyatt?
Oh, from Tennessee. There we go.
That was a Tennessee joke. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that was like the same stat line.
Yeah, that was.
Read it again.
Ridiculous. 5 for 243 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's pretty close. That's pretty close.
The heck of a night indeed. Guys, before we get to some of our game predictions that we're going to talk about this week, I wanted to run through real quick the Tif Power Rankings and who they have ranked first in each division, and then ask you guys if you agree or disagree with the premise of kind of right now it's them versus the field. So in Division 5, Crawford right now is the number 1 team. Escondido, Charter, Classical, Army, Navy are the 2, 3, and 4. Are you fair enough? Are you in with saying that it's Crawford versus the field in Division 5, or do you like somebody else as the favorite right now?
I would have no problem saying Crawford's the favorite, but this is one where an upset here wouldn't surprise me. Even going down to number 4, Army Navy, they've been really impressive. Got guys on both sides of the ball. We know Elko Valley can run the ball. So I'm fine with saying Crawford's the favorite, but I think it's a really tight battle.
Tommy Morris.
I would agree. The one that sticks out to me too is Escondido Charter. They've had some pretty impressive wins over Country Day. Their only losses are Santa Fe Christian and Bishops, which are teams in way higher divisions. So I would be keeping an eye on the White Tigers over at Escondido Charter too. But I agree with the Army Navy call. They might have the best player in Division 5 on their team, so you can never really count them out. D5 will be competitive. That's for sure.
I agree the D5 will be competitive, but I want to chime in that I feel like it is Crawford versus the field right now. On to Division 4. It is Fallbrook with the number 1 slot. La Jolla Country Day, Palo Verde Valley, Montgomery rounding out the 2, 3, and 4. But again, another loaded bracket. Starting with you, Bodie De Silva, do you feel like this is Fallbrook versus the field, or do you like somebody better right now as the favorite going into the last couple weeks of the season?
I do. I like Fallbrook at this point. The games that they've won, they've played a tougher schedule than most Division IV teams and have really been impressive throughout. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Certainly won't say that they're a lock to win it all, but I think they're a solid favorite.
Tommy Morris.
I have to agree. Challenging yourself during the season with higher division teams that coming down and playing a lower division playoff bracket is a massive, massive advantage. That's why, I mean, there are some teams in here that it can be sneaky good. And I'm looking, I know this is crazy, but I'm looking at a 1-7 Westview right now who's had to play like Division I, Division II teams. They're the only team that's had a similar schedule to Fallbrook to where they played some tough teams. Palo Verde, got to mention them at least. Whenever teams from the desert come west, we don't really know what we're going to get. They're 7-1. That's not an accident. Country Day is a team that can score with anybody, so they're going to have to put up points if they're going to play them. And then Mission Bay too. Again, we saw them play UC tough. This is a tough group of kids that I think can be competitive with Fallbrook. So yes, I think it's Fallbrook's race to win right now, but I don't think by any means is this going to be a walkthrough through the bracket for them.
I do love the confidence in a 1-7 Westview still being potentially a threat, because I had them on my In the Hunt graphic earlier in this year, and I need that to pan out in the playoffs. I need them to be tricky. On to Division III. University City has the #1 spot, but then Del Norte, Point Loma, Imperial round out the 2, 3, and 4. This is another one with a ton of talent loaded all the way down through 9. We've talked about Morris a lot this year. Even below that, Olympian, Orange Glen, Bonita Vista. There's threats at all level. But guys, what do you say? University City versus the field, or do you like somebody better than this? We'll start with you, Bodie.
Yeah, for me, I'm really circling these top 3 teams here. University City and Point Loma played a tight game last week. I saw Point Loma a couple weeks ago, and they were really impressive in a big win over Morris. Del Norte can put up points. I don't know how great the defense is, and they're playing a tougher league with a lot of teams in divisions above them. Obviously, Poway's in that as well. But I would circle those top 3, and I would expect the final to come out of those 3 right there.
Tommy Morris, your thoughts?
Well, funny thing about this, so University City played Del Norte overtime. They played Point Loma, goal line stand to win. They played Bishops, guy got tackled on the 2 for University to win the game. So those 3 have all played each other basically even. Imperial, again, team from out east, tough to know. And then San Pasqual could be a tricky one, I think, for anybody in this bracket, because they're just a little bit different brand of football. RBV, we talked about them a lot early in the season. I don't think we can forget about them. And then Morrison there at 9, tough group of kids. I know we're going to talk about some of these teams later when we get to game picks, but I don't think by any means this is a one-team race, And then Patrick Henry's going to get a crack at University City later this year too. So all these teams have sort of played each other, and they've all played each other tight. I think every single game in this bracket specifically is going to be very, very close. I think this is probably the most competitive as far as all teams about the same level division that we have so far in San Diego.
And just as Tommy says that, I click over to the Division II brackets, and I say, no, this is the more competitive one. I feel like we're going to say that as we hit each one of these, because these things are this is insanely balanced this year. Credit to the CIF formula. I think maybe even low-key working out. Into the Division II, though, Granite Hills is the #1 seed per the points official to CIF. Mira Mesa, Ramona, San Marcos round out the 2, 3, 4. But again, you get crossfire into they play a real tough, they play a real easy, they play down, they play up, it zigzags around. League gets hard. It's hard to compare maybe records head to head on some of this, and you just got to refine it down to who do you want matchup wise. Starting with you, Bodie De Silva, what do you like? Is it Granite Hills versus the field, or do you think somebody else is your favorite?
Yeah, Granite Hills is definitely my favorite. Ramon, I think, started off a little hot. They've cooled off in league play, which has been a little bit of a surprise to me. San Marcos started off hot as well, but playing in that difficult avocado league with the younger kids is going to take their beatings as well. So I could see San Marcos kind of coming around playoff time, but for me, it's Granite Hills. Not that it means everything, but they have the exact point total as Mira Mesa. They each played undefeated Madison. Granite was up that whole game going into the 4th quarter. Meanwhile, when Mira Mesa played Madison, it was a 30-point blowout. So I think I'll give Granite a little edge that way. They've been really good and really surprising throughout the year. So I would definitely have Granite as a significant favorite here.
Tommy, I'm not going to put you on the spot for an answer of your favorite in this field. If you do want to chime in, you're more than welcome. I will say, though, that The Mira Mesa one is it's hard to look past the mutual point spread on that one game, but Mira Mesa plays an equally exciting version of football that I would love to see it be Mira Mesa versus the Field, Granite versus the Field. If we could get Granite and Mira Mesa to be the 1-2 seed and get them into a finals, that would be an awesome game. That game would not disappoint. But I think even potentially, if I'm looking all the way down, you could say that as low as number 10, Mount Carmel could be, you could make a viable path for that all the way through to the playoffs. Tommy, do you want to add anything, or shall we move on to Division I and open?
I think all these teams are going to play really hard. I think 12 at the playoffs, 4 of them will get byes. And then the winner of each game will then advance to another round, and then it will culminate in the finals. I had the date on me. Hold on. Late November. So
a slice and a
dice. That all checks out.
On to the Division I.
That all checks out. That is 100%. That is 100% correct prediction. So
100% verifiable information. Tommy Morris, nothing but the best journalism. For Division I and open, this one again remains tricky until the last day because you don't know the final permutation. But assuming that Carlsbad and Madison are in on open division, get your guys' thoughts then on just who you have as those last two teams and then as the number 1 seed in D1, if that's fair. Bodie, can we start with you?
Well, yeah, I think the big thing I'm looking at is the games over these last 2 weeks, and I'm going to write about that this week. The 10 most important games that will kind of look for playoffs. Seeding is impactful this week, but next week, Madison at Lincoln, a league title is going to be on the line. And I think ultimately probably I don't know if they can hop to number 1, but probably the 2 seed in open division on the line as well. So that's a game I'll be at. I'm really looking forward to. They played twice last year. Madison won the regular season game. Lincoln got them come playoff time. So they're super familiar. I think they're very equal teams. I have Lincoln higher at this point just because they've played a tougher schedule. But I think that's the one I'm looking at this point.
And then for maybe top of Division I, who right now in the maybe them versus the Field?
Yeah, I think El Camino is someone that they're playing their best football right now. They gave Carlsbad a tough of his game as anyone in the section has this year. So if they can finish out strong and grab one of those byes in Division I, I think El Camino, the way that they play defense, offensively, they got several running backs, a mobile quarterback. That's a team that I like to make a run, assuming that they're in the Division I top 4 seeds.
Tommy Morris, your thoughts on who rounds out open division / becomes the top seed in D1?
I haven't looked at the specific math on this, so Bodie, correct me if I'm wrong. There is a chance, though, because we'll talk about this game in a second. El Camino, if they beat Mission Hills, it's gonna vault them up just a little bit. Given that Cathedral's gonna have to play Saints, and if they beat Saints, and Saints becomes a team that's gonna be in that second tier in Division I as far as points allocation is concerned, and then if Scripps loses this week and next week, they're now a bottom tier Division I team, which will not give Cathedral as many points as El Camino will get if they win out their last 2 games. So they're going to vault up. Then obviously they have to play Mission Hills. So beating them will give them a boost as well. So we could very easily see El Camino get that 4 seed. If not, I believe they'll. It's possible. If not,
I hadn't thought about that, but now that I'm visualizing that, looking at that, Tommy, with the tinfoil hat conspiracy that El Camino is going to jump into the 4. I like it, Tommy. Go, yes. If
they win out, I think it happens. So that would be crazy. I'm not going to count out Helix in Division I. I mean, I just can't. Every time I feel like I'm doubting them, they seem to prove me wrong. So I'm going to put Helix up there, and then I think Modern Day Catholics can be very hungry to prove themselves after not pulling off that gauntlet of San Diego teams that played early in the season. I think they were looking for redemption, so don't count those 2 guys out either.
Won't count any of them out. On to our game predictions and previews from this week. Let's start then right there with that Mission Hills El Camino game. That's perfect timing for this. Tommy, you brought this one up as being an important one potentially now with open division implications. Who do you have here? Is El Camino going to be able to set themselves up for this ultimately huge leapfrog scenario you've kind of outlined?
Well, their defense sticks out to me. They're coming off shutting out San Marcos. I know Bodie already mentioned Zero Eatman with 150 yards, 2 touchdowns last week. Quentin Johnson had 4 sacks in that game, which is crazy. That gives him 8 on the year, so he doubled his sack total. This is a massive game for El Camino. I feel like they've been sort of forgotten, and that's why when I even put out there that there is a possibility they can make the Open, everyone kind of looks back, but it is mathematically possible. So I like El Camino in this one. This is a huge game for them. And if they win one, it'll be very interesting to see the way the math shakes out for next week.
Bodie DeSilva from Scorebook Live.
I like El Camino in this one as well. The way they're playing defensively, I think they're a really tough matchup for anyone. Mission Hills has certainly improved, I think, since I saw them earlier in the year. A tough game against La Costa Canyon where they were not able to score offensively. They got a D-line pick 6, which is always an exciting play. But I think they've gotten their offense together a little bit since then. But I like El Camino the way that they're stopping everyone right now.
University City at Morse. To me, you guys outlined it perfectly. You teed it up that they've played all these close games with all these different teams. So why not have one more big test with the one that we kind of define as the outline parameter here? So what do we got? UC or Morse? Let's start with you, Bodie DeSilva.
Yeah, I think the toughest thing for me to say here is just what I've seen from these teams recently. I was at that Point Loma Morse game. I saw what Point Loma was able to do, and then University City with a close win over Point Loma. So I think University City here, I think finally it's not one of these super close games that they've been playing. Not to say that it's more than 10 or 14 points. I just don't think it'll come down to the last possession. I think UC gets a somewhat comfortable win here.
Tommy Morris.
Yeah, UC's been in I don't think I've ever seen a team be in more close games than UC. That seems like it doesn't matter who the opponent is. It's always the last play of the game is the game on the line. Demarion Wright for Morse. He's 28 yards away from breaking the 1,000-yard mark, 15 touchdowns. He has also 313 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he's one of the best players in San Diego, so I'll got to make sure I mention his name whenever I can. For UC, again, been kind of a crazy season for them. They are very, very, very hard to prepare for defensively because they'll have Sam Cooper play quarterback, receiver, running back. They'll bring in Quentin DeMaro, who's now gotten enough varsity reps to where he looks confident. They've got great wide receivers in Troy Bassler, Drayden Gardner, and then they'll bring Todd Harrison, who's one of the fastest kids in San Diego. So very, very hard to prepare for them. But Morse, one of the toughest teams in San Diego, you can never really count them out. I do like UC in this one, but I think this will be a very close game. I don't think it's going to be I think it'll be another one for UC. I think this could go to overtime. It's going to be a very, very, very tight game. It's either homecoming or senior night for them. So they're going to be fired up. I think I want to call it an overtime game. And I think it might be. I think we might be looking at another overtime game here for UC.
Tommy Moore is speaking insanity into existence. Point Loma at Mission Bay. We talked about Point Loma earlier in the show. We did not talk about Mission Bay particularly in depth. They have quietly had another great season as they have moved up a division and continue to be a bit of a threat. This one